Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us for this special live session. I'm Itzik Amiel, and we are here with the weekly Switch series, Switch It On, where we share ideas, insight, and inspiration to help you as a professional to switch relationships to revenue, referrals, and reputation. And you are invited to join me right now. And again, if you are joining now, please put your name and where you're dialing from in the chat. So I would love to see you, who you are when you're joining us. Today we're going to talk about asking for advice, or more specifically about how successful people ask for advice. And again, if you're joining me now, please, I see Rajesh, Sarah, Lara, and Jean, Lori, and Angelo, all of you joining, please put your name in the chat so we'll see who you are, where you're joining from. So thank you very, very much for joining us today. You see, and I would love to share with you interesting and practical insight today. And it actually started in one of the last conferences when I was the keynote speaker. And one of the attendees, actually a lawyer, approached me and asked me, Itzik, can I pick up your brain? Now, I waited a few seconds. I looked at him, and he already could see that I got very irritated. So what I decided to do is to share with you in this special episode what I did share with him. What did I answer when he asked me the question? Now, I must admit publicly that these 5 words, can I pick up your brain? I mean, these 5 words are definitely the wrong way for asking for advice, especially if you're a successful person or you consider yourself a successful person. I don't want you to use them when he asks the next time for advice. In fact, these words make us the most thoughtless, irritating, and maybe generic way to ask for advice. And in fact, what makes me sad is as an international speaker and a trainer and lawyer myself, I heard it more than a dozen of times. So that's why I thought it's time to change your way of thinking, to switch how you're asking for advice. Now, please don't get me wrong. I know that the intention of this specific lawyer is very good. And I also believe that you should ask, because asking for advice is a sign of intelligence. And on the other side, at the same time, offering advice is a sign of good leadership. Absolutely. And if the exchange go well, we all know both party benefits from it. So there's a good thing going out of that. But on the other side, if you think about it a second, about this phrase itself, can I pick your brain? Do you agree that it's vague and a way too open-ended? And when someone starts a conversation this way, can I pick your brain? There's no telling where it go or how long it will take. Do you agree? See, Harvard Business School professor Joshua Margolis and Professor David Garvin already in 2015 wrote an article in Harvard's Business Review. And according to them, let me quote, the whole interaction is a subtle and interstate art. It requires emotional intelligence, self-awareness, restraint, diplomacy, and patience. See, all those things are together is the art of asking the question. And in order to avoid wrong consequences, you need some guidance on how to ask for advice without annoying the other person. And that's the reason I want to offer you here in this coming minutes of this Switch On LinkedIn Live, how to ask the right question, okay? You have to ask for advice. So let's start diving in with the first advice I have for you, how to ask for advice. Now, before that, I want to say hello to all people who are joining me now. I see you, Rina, David, Shemo, Shlomi, Ardeta, Arnett. Thank you very much for all of you for joining. Again, please put your name in the chat so I'll be able to put you in front. Everybody will see where you're dialing from. You can see all of you come from international different market. And if you'll have a question during my session here today, please also put it in the chat. I'll be happy to answer your question today before the end of this episode. So again, if you have a question, put it in the chat. If you want to share with us who you are, where you're from, do that as well in the chat, okay? So let's be speaking, by the way, those of you joining us now, on the right way to asking for advice. And let's move forward and share with you the first point I wanted to share on how to ask for advice in the right way. So number one is start with a positive tone. Again, number one is start with a positive tone. This way you start and initiate the conversation is everything. The way you start is everything. Instead of starting with the word, can I pick your brain? I want you to shift the language to more positive tone. So here's an example. I recommend you could use that as well. Instead of, can I pick your brain? You could say, I love your advice. You see, no frills. It's very friendly and simple manner and positive way to ask for advice. Next point, number two, I want you to identify the type of advice you're seeking. And here, what do I mean by that? Immediately after your opening line, whatever you choose to do, I want you to address the topic of your problem in the form of a question. And again, in the form of a question. So in order to craft a question with a great precision, ask yourself the following. What type of advice am I seeking? What does my problem involve? What is my desired outcome? Okay, let me give you an example so you understand. So let's assume the type of advice you're looking for is regarding mentoring. As you know, I'm mentoring a lot of lawyers and accountants around the world. So let's assume you want to ask an advice about mentoring. So the first I said, what is involved? So maybe for you, it's involving providing opportunities, guidance, and maybe protection to aid your career success or your practice. Okay? The next question I said you should ask, what is your desired outcome? So maybe if you ask for advice, your desired outcome is a relationship dedicated to building and sustaining a professional and personal effectiveness and career advancement. If that's the case, so what's the question could be here, if those are the answers to this question? So example of question you can ask is, how can I get more exposure for my project? That's how you can approach somebody to get advice and to get the results and the desired outcome you really wanted. Yeah? Awesome. I mean, I see people joining us, so thank you very much for joining us. Again, all of you joining us, if you want to put your name in the chat or if you have a question, put it in the chat and I'll be happy to answer you. So let me bring me to the next point about asking for advice in the right way. And the point number 3, which is come prepared with specific details. What do I mean by that? So you move forward there with the conversation with the person you want to ask for advice. It's important for you to clarify and define clearly the problem that you have that you had to need advice for. So before asking specifically for the advice, you need to clarify your problem. Do you agree? Makes sense, right? So otherwise, you're doing like what I like to call a bait and switch. What do I mean? According to Margolis and Margolis, professor from Harvard University, when you don't prepare with the specific details about your problem, you're more likely to end up telling a lengthy blow by blah, blah, blah story. And that's what you don't want when you go to ask for advice. Because that might cause the advice giver, the person who asks you for advice, to tune out from what you want or to lose the focus or misidentify the core problem that you really need solving and you really want to get advice. See, providing specific details keeps the conversation very focused, absolutely pleasant, and even interesting. Yeah? So that's number 3, come prepared with a specific detail. Point number 4, ask the right person. Yes, indeed. I want you to think creatively about the expertise you need. Who are the people who you think have the expertise that will really give you the advice? And don't need to ask everybody. Who will bring you the most valuable insight if you ask for the advice? Who has the most knowledge that's relevant to your problem? Because then your advice will be relevant and solve your problem faster. You want to ask advice from the right person. And just ask for guidance for people you feel comfortable with. And again, that could be a close friend. It could be a family member. It doesn't have to be somebody strange. But still, you have to choose the right person. Because if you don't ask the right person, you're not going to get the right advice. And again, it will be misleading. Yeah? Again, if you have a question, I see Rajesh asking, and Diana, if you have a question, put it in the chat. You can ask me, and I will be happy to share with the audience and answer your question. And again, if you want to share who you are, where you're dialing from, be my guest. Next point, point number 5 for asking for the right way of asking advice is don't ask everyone. What do I mean here? Here's the reality. Clearly, you won't be able to follow everyone's advice, correct? You don't have the time for all of it. So don't run around and asking a bunch of people for advice, because that's actually will backfire on you. They can really backfire on you quickly. So you need to be very careful when you're choosing the right people. Don't ask everybody. Because research actually shows that those whose advice you don't take may have maybe a worse view of you afterward. And even worse, they may even see you as less competent or really avoid you. So if you're asking for advice you want to implement, that's why it's better to ask less people and don't ask everyone, maybe even one person. Remember, asking for advice is not doing a survey. Asking advice is not doing a survey. You don't ask everyone to give you an answer. Get it? Great. I'm happy I see some people getting awesome advice. Great. I'm happy you're happy with that, because that's important. That's the art of asking for advice. It's very important to get the right advice from the right people. So if you're okay with it, the next point many of us fail to follow when it comes to asking for advice is point number 6. Point number 6 is don't assume you already know the answer. Again, don't assume you already know the answer. Professor Garvin, Professor Margolis pointed out that people often have a hard time, and in their words, let me quote them, assessing their own competence and place too much faith in their intuition. That's what most people are. And what is the result if you do that? They end up asking for advice simply to gain validation or praise. Do you recognize yourself here? Do you believe that sometimes that you already solved the problem, but just want to confirmation or maybe a recognition from your bosses or your peers? Do you ask advice for that reason? Because both Professor Garvin and Professor Margolis warned and say to us, it's a dangerous game to play because you risk alienating your advisor when it becomes evident, and by the way, it will, that you're requesting guidance just for show or to avoid additional work. And I don't want that to happen for you. So don't assume you already know the answers, and don't do it just for show or that to impress somebody. You really genuinely, authentically need advice, and you're right, find the right people. And I'm almost in the last point for asking for the advice, points number 7, and I'm waiting for your question, because if it's the process is interesting and clear for you, I'm happy. If not, ask the question now in the chat, and I'll be happy to help you out. So point number 7 is be grateful. Now, it goes without saying, but based on my own experience, and I think you know that, but I still feel needed to emphasize it, be grateful. Thanks your advisor. People give advice for the time and at the conclusion of the meeting or the call you had with them. And it doesn't matter how you do it, as long as you do it. Thank them. Be grateful. In my opinion, it doesn't even hurt to thank them again. Maybe the next day via email. Even if you did it in a call, do it again. And you can also follow up later to let them know that what is your feedback, and what after they help you, what is how it helped you, their feedback and their advice to you. That's why I call golden circle, because you continue the relationship, you follow up. Now, as being expert myself on the subject of building relationships, I warmly suggest don't underestimate the power of gratitude. Let me say it again. Don't underestimate the power of gratitude. Many of us taking it for granted and thinking people know. No, if somebody gave you advice, gave you the time, thank them. Showing that you're humble and appreciative will go a long way when you build relationship, and definitely maintaining good relationship with those in your professional network. After all, that's the most important asset you had, right? Relationship capital. And I want you to protect it like diamonds. Make sure you are grateful and thank the people. Don't take it for granted. Anybody has a question, now is the time to ask it before I'm going to end up soon the session. I hope you understand all the 7 tips I gave you to ask the advice the right way. Let me repeat it: is number one, start with a positive tone. Number two, identify the type of advice you're seeking. Number three, come prepared with specific details. Number four, ask the right person. Number five, don't ask everyone. Remember, it's not a survey. Number six, don't assume you already know and you know the answer. And number seven, be grateful. I mean, all those things are important point to learn how to ask the right advice. Seeking and giving advice are central to effective leadership and decision making in a professional firm. But unfortunately, in the professional industry, we seldom view them as a practical skills we can learn and improve. Many times we take it for granted. And I think it's a time to switch our approach for asking for advice, to ask it in the right way. Although people typically focus on the content of the advice, those who are more skilled attend just as much to how they ask for the advice, and not only for the content of the advice, as to the issue they ask the advice about, the problem they really need. To summarize this great session, let me share a quote from Dennis Baca, who said, asking for advice is an act of humility. The act alone says, I need you. The decision maker and the advisor are pushed into a close relationships. And that's the power of asking advice in the right way, as successful people do, and I hope now you will. So now, my friend, it's time to take action, implement what you have learned in this session. I see there's no question. I hope I'm clear. I'm happy you're all joining me and interesting. I trust you got some insight on how successful people ask for advice, and now it's your turn to learn. You can learn more on the hub.theswitch.ch on the screen. You can find more on the new online courses coming, on thing on building relationship. I'm there to help you. Come over. If you need support, accountability, mentorship, and training, that's the time. Connect. That's the best way. If you need any help implementing in your practice what I teach today, just learn how to use asking advice for building better relationship. That's exactly what we do with our client. We help to build engaging relationships with your clients, with a prospect, but even internally with your own employees. Send us an email, send me a private message in the LinkedIn to see how can we help. I'll be happy to support you. Next week, we have another amazing top expert to discuss a new practical strategy to grow your practice and build better relationship, reputation, and referral for your own firm. And I suggest you tune in and you join us for that. If you want to make sure you don't miss one of our weekly Switch On interview series, follow me on LinkedIn or go to the Switch Hub website as I just shared with you on the screen. You can sign up, get our business development strategies and tips, check and register to one of my own new online courses and live workshop accord that I'm organizing. And you're very welcome to send me, as I said, PM, private message, or an email to ask any question you have, and I can be of value to you and your practice. For now, I want to thank each one of you who joined me today. I'm happy you don't have any question. Thank you for being here. And I hope to see you again next Tuesday, 6 p.m. Central European Time, 12 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Pacific Time. Until next time, and now remember, it's never too late to switch on the way you ask for advice. Okay? Bye for now, everybody, and I sing you. Goodbye.